Time now to run the No Huddle. 4 stories, no huddling. Head to Dallas, perhaps haunted by last year's proclamation that the Cowboys would be all in. Jerry Jones walked back Stephen Jones' claim that the Cowboys would be selectively aggressive in free agency.
Well, I mean, free agency it's literally what free agency is.
Yeah.
I mean, am I wrong? Like
it's one of the ways to fill a void.
Right,
yeah.
but
typically
no, I'm not.
Money in the draft and.
I'm not saying free agency is the only way to fill a void. What I am saying is the entire purpose of free agency is to fill voids or add depth, I guess. Here's the thing. I'm just going to keep saying this. The Cowboys are cheap. I can't do it to the Bengals, not do it to the Cowboys when the evidence is overwhelming. There is a team in their division. What, you're shaking your head?
I don't think that's a fair comparison at all.
Well, I don't. For the Bengals, it's historic. For the Cowboys, it's over the last half decade. They spend less money as far as the cash spending than any team in their division. They're one of the lowest spending teams in the league. Like, they have become, it's, in my opinion, why they let the coach's contract run out rather than fire him or move on. Like, I think they, so let me phrase it a little differently, and then you go. Maybe the Cowboys aren't cheap, but they operate just the way a cheap franchise would.
They got cheap titties.
Yeah, exactly right. Like, maybe they're not.
Well, they don't have any salary cap space.
They got $50 million now. Because they just redid Dak.
But remember, there's a player that's sitting there that's going to cost a ton of money. So if you factor in the Micah Parsons component of that, which has to get done, and I think the great thing he's doing this offseason is he's not blowing up expectations like all of last year where they're going all in. He's being much more realistic with the fan base as to where they are. And the worst part about free agency is there's nothing remotely free about it. You pay this premium for players that's way above what you would normally pay for a guy, and it's not a great place to do business.
Same old Cowboys. Same old Cowboys. Look, Coach is right. He's going to use that cap space that they got with renegotiating Dak's deal to pay Micah and maybe DeMarcus or whoever else they're going to bring back. There were reports recently that they're not even going to draft Ashton Jeanty. So, I mean, we'll see. Does that mean Dowdle again? Rico Dowdle's going to be there?
You were getting high on that.
I like him as the second back, but they better go get a first back. So, and free eight, they're gonna improve the team by signing their same old guys and then by drafting. That's how they're going to do it.
I can't believe that I'm the Dallas Cowboys defender on the panel here, but the fact that they're signing their best players back.
No, that's great.
If they weren't doing that, everybody's like, what's wrong with these guys? They're crazy.
So what are they going to do? They're in serious danger of missing the playoffs.
And I think that's
the guys they have are really like Micah Parsons.
No, I agree. They got to bring back Micah.
Well, but hold on though. Yes, Micah's going to cost you a ton of money. But Micah's on his 5th-year option. His cap hit actually will probably go down a bit from where it is right now on the 5th-year option, even if he makes $35 million a year. If anything, at worst, it jumps slightly. They have a ton of holes on the roster. We just saw this team last year. Right now, this very moment, the Cowboys' position of strength, where they are they have a top 10 group of what in the league? I would argue quarterback. That's it. And he's coming off an injury.
CD's getting paid like he's top.
No. They have a top 5. I'm talking about like their running back group, their wide receiver.
They got
their
individuals.
Line.
Yeah. Right. They got Dak, CD, and Mike.
I don't think they have a top 10 defensive line. I don't think they have, with Micah and Adigizua, maybe it's fringe. Certainly not linebacker, not secondary. The point I'm making is if this is a team that wants to compete in the division, let alone the conference, they do need to be very aggressive. I agree with you, Coach, that it's a bad spot to be in. You don't want to have to spend in free agency a ton of money. Usually the best teams don't. I agree with that. But if they don't, if it's like, no, we're going to take our medicine and build through the draft, you normally don't do that while simultaneously having the highest paid quarterback in the league. Like, that just is, to me, misaligned.
Yeah, I just don't think it's fair to ding them for wanting to sign their best players back and maybe get into free agency later to try to fill some of those voids. But, they don't have all this money from from anywhere. They redid Dak's contract. That money still needs to get paid out.
That part's totally true.
And it's a long-term vision.
A new mock draft on NFL.com. Charles Davis has Shedeur at 1 to Tennessee, Cam Ward at 2 to Cleveland, Jackson Dart at 3 to the Giants. Brew will focus at the top. Are you buying that Shedeur going 1 is on the board?
I think it's on the board. Obviously, they need a quarterback in Tennessee. I don't expect it, but yeah, it's on the board. And certainly, if they're looking between him and Cam Ward, I like Cam Ward. I like Shedeur better.
You would take him 1.
I would. Well, yeah. I don't love they need some more receivers, but yeah, if I would probably take Shedeur.
Let me rephrase it. Shedeur would be your first quarterback of the draft.
Yes,
that's what it should.
But yeah, it's on the board, sure.
I find it hard to think that it's on the board if you're evaluating him, and I see Shedeur differently in terms of what his upside is and readiness is to be the franchise guy, especially the number 1 overall pick. The reason to me it's on the board is because the owner is very involved in Tennessee, and Shedeur brings some pop and some some of the other stuff
which they could use
that can push an organization to take someone that maybe isn't what the football people necessarily want.
Can I ask?
It would be good for marketing. You're right.
Yeah.
At least initially.
Can I turn the car a bit on the Shedeur conversation? I just want to ask Coach a question about it. If you are a coach this is probably unfair to Brian Callahan, but because he's been there for such a short period of time, so I don't want to say he's on the hot seat. But if you are a coach on the hot seat, does drafting Shedeur make you nervous? Do you feel like I don't think usually the coach gets to pick, who the number 1 pick is going to be. Usually that's the GM for not all teams, but most teams. Coach has a say. But do you think that I'm trying to think of a team that could be drafting whose coach is firmly entrenched, but none of all the teams in the top 5. If you're in the top 5, your coach is probably a little on the hot seat. But would that part make you nervous? I'll use Brian Callahan. Oh boy, if we take him, and we struggle, especially if he plays well, but we struggle.
If they take him and he struggles, it's going to be the coach's fault. It's not going to be the player's fault.
I'm saying where
you're saying the specter
of Deion. That's what I'm saying.
I don't see it as a specter of Deion. I see it more as the specter of Jaden Daniels and C.J. Stroud and things like that, where if you take that guy and then the next guy ends up being, what Jaden was for Washington, that'll get you fired more than anything else. You need to be right on. You got the number 1 pick. No one can jump you.
I would be nervous if I was Brian Callahan and Coach Prime shows up and he just so happens to be wearing a whistle. What's going on there?
If he starts looking at real estate in Tennessee.
I guess the good example would be if the Raiders draft Shedeur, I think Pete Carroll's you just hired me. You know what I mean? I'm fine. If the Giants draft Shedeur, Brian Dable, who we all know is on the hot seat right now, is probably oh boy.
That's great.
And if you don't have much say in that pick.
Right. It just feels like, and I'm talking about because of this. Forget number 1 overall. Whoever takes him, will the specter of Deion? If Shedeur ends up being a really good player, but the team struggles, is the specter of Deion looming over?
I wonder if the owner of the Giants has dinner with Shedeur and Deion at the same time.
Yeah.
Just to see
Right. I'd like to see him with the Giants.
We got to get to this story. The Bengals. They franchised Tee Higgins.
You're so annoying.
You sabotaged your story.
This is so bad.
Yesterday.
There is an exact similar story that you won't let us talk about, and this story we're talking about every day.
They said they want to work out a deal. Their phone is ringing off the hook. Sit down at dinner. Ring, ring, ring. Hello? No, T is not here. No, we're trying to work out a deal. Stop calling. Are you sure Tee Higgins will be on the roster week 1, bro?
Well, you know what? We just talked about Tennessee taking a quarterback. How about teaming him up with Tee Higgins?
Oh, trading their second pick?
I'm not obviously not giving up the first one. Well, I like to get Tee Higgins with my young quarterback. Obviously, New England, he'd be great for you. I'll give you that. He'd be great for you. So they should be calling too.
I mean, the whole Tee Higgins thing is, what do they want for him? Are they going to give a reasonable amount of drafts, compensation? Because what we got a 5th and a 7th right now is what the last 2 receivers got traded for. Is Cincinnati going to say we want a 1 or a 2, and then that makes it unrealistic because.
You think a 2 is unrealistic for Tee Higgins?
They need to trade.
Here's the problem: is when you're making that trade, not only are you giving up draft capital and a guy you're going to have for 4 years, but then you got to pay him a ton of money. And Tee Higgins missed 5 games each of the last 2 years. Are you getting 17 games, or are you looking at it as, okay, we got him for 12 games a year?
So
need him for 20.
Carolina would be a decent place for Tee Higgins.
They
thought about that.
But they don't.
I like that.
If they really believe in Brown.
Their 2nd-round pick this year goes to the Bears. Amazingly, they're still paying that off. But they might have a different pick.
Yeah, but maybe if it's in the 5th, 6th, 7th,
I think there is a 0% chance he's traded for a mid-round pick. I think those other guys who were traded were near, Christian Kirk was going to get cut. Debo is 29. You know what I mean? In a different spot. But your point is a point Danny makes on Breakfast Ball all the time, and it's smart. It's the single most expensive way to acquire a player.
Yeah, it's terrible.
Trading your draft pick and signing him to the top of the market deal. It's what Miami did to get Tyreek Hill. Like, we've seen it, but it is a very expensive way to build your roster.
Sometimes you can make it a little bit more palatable by a conditional pick where we give you a 3rd if he plays, X amount of games at performance level. It bumps up to a 2, so everybody has to win, and if they win, you're okay with it.
To me, just quickly, I know this isn't exactly answering the question on the bar, but to the question Wilds asked, the Bengals moving on from Trey Hendrickson ostensibly, to me signals they are not moving on from T. I don't know if they get a deal done or not, but they are Burrow had said, and they had, not just Burrow, the team had said our goal was to keep all 3, Chase, Higgins, and Hendrickson. One horse is out the barn. I don't think they're going to go 1 for 3. I do now that Hendrickson seemingly is gone, I do expect T to be on the roster. Now, whether that's with a long-term deal or with the franchise tag, I don't know. But I think the calls are going to continue to go. Good. How are they going to go?
Hello? No, we're eating dinner. Joey Bosa, released by the Chargers, favored to land him the 49ers, who would stack their line with both Bosas. Coach, do you like this idea?
I like the idea from the perspective of the brothers playing together. I think that's cool. I don't know if a team that it was dealing with injuries all last season and had a lot of injury problems wanted to bring another guy who's missed almost 50% of the games, over the last 3 years. He's only had 14 sacks in the last 3 years. Hendrickson had 17 sacks last year. So what do you have to pay him? How much is he going to play? What kind of an injury risk? It's a cool story. It'd be fun to watch, but I don't know if it makes sense.
I'm with you on that, Coach. I mean, look, like you said, you love the team with his brother. Theoretically, he'd make your defensive front really nice, but he has been banged up 2 of the last 3 years. And so they got to spend money elsewhere. I would probably lay back on this.
Joey Bosa is not that good anymore. The ones his body betrayed him, whatever it was.
He made the Pro Bowl somehow.
Okay, but listen. As someone who.
So did Drake May.
I know exactly.
I don't know what the Pro Bowl even means
anymore. Throw the game in the garbage. My team has played his team twice a year his entire career. There was a point in time when Joey Bosa was terrifying. We are now at a point in time where the Chiefs will play the Chargers, and if I'm not paying super close attention, I won't know. Is that one of the many games he missed, or just one of the many games he was not that impactful? He's just not the player that he once
14
was.
14 sacks in 3 years is not exactly.
Yeah, and for a guy who was being paid at the very top of the market. So, yeah. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get more from the show and to check out clips from other shows on FS1.